All right. How many times have you gotten into a Zoom or a Google Meet with a prospective client and you focused on your sales agenda? You just want to make sure you had all the points, and you wanted to remain professional and just have a way to refer to your notes. Well, today I'm going to share with you a process that I just started using along with two tools that you should not conduct any sales calls without, because unless you're really expert at sales, which is frankly always something we have to work at. And I think even some of the most expert salespeople, you gotta, really hone it in. And I'm not talking, you don't have to go to any sales training like Sandler or professionally educated, other different things. I've been to Xerox University. And I have a background of sales, but I can't say for sure that I am expert. So today I'm going to show you these two tools that I think will hopefully help you get a lot closer to becoming so much smarter about your sales calls. So let's get into it. So Fathom Video, the single best sales tool there is. It records, it transcribes, it highlights, it summarizes all your calls. And because of this inexpensive, amazing tool, I don't ever have to take another physical note again. Now, you may be already familiar with this tool. There's some others, and the names are not coming to mind, but I have tried some other tools. I know Zoom has their own little AI thing, which I've tested that out. I haven't found it to be really very accurate, but Fathom, I feel like, does a really great job. And I'm going to get into exactly what this looks like. So this is Fathom. It's Fathom.video. I am not an affiliate for it, so I'm just making a recommendation. You can just get started with it. It's very inexpensive. I think the pricing is, let's see, what is the pricing? I don't even know what the pricing. I think it's like $19 a month or something. But you can just sign up, get signed up for free. And the way that it connects, whether you're using Zoom, Microsoft Teams, Google Meet, it's just basically an integration where you just, it's either the Chrome plugin or you can and I'll show you what it looks like when you're in Meet. So here we're in Google Meet, and I just start a meeting right now. So you can kind of see right here is where you can just have it automatically. It's already in there. So I don't even have to have it joined, but so I'm going to admit my BCG, and I call it the BCG note taker. We just admit it. And so it will look like it's another member of your team or your sales call. They're just there, but you can call it whatever you want. But I have had situations where I'm on a sales call and I have my Fathom note taker already in there taking notes. It looked just like that, where it's called the BCG note taker. And so many times a prospect will say, "Oh, is that an AI note taker?" And I'll tell them, "Yeah, it is." So that way I get to focus on our conversation and not have to worry about what did I ask or follow up. I can just focus specifically on them and getting to the challenge or the situation that brought them to the call with me. That should be your focus in any sales situation. You need to be a better listener than a better talker. And I found Fathom to be really help you to listen better because it's there in the background taking those notes. At the end of it, this is what I also find like is such a cool thing, is when you want to kind of review the minutes from that meeting, you just log into your Fathom account and it'll show you all the library of all the videos that you've got. And this is just one of them where I jumped into a call with this prospect. It has a meeting purpose, and you can even drop it down and you can choose all different ways. I've tested them out where it'll just give me a project kickoff. If it'll sort of restructure the notes according to maybe action items that are needed or whatever. But I've generally have used the general because it does have a lot of the key takeaways and things. I've tried the sales one, and that does a pretty decent job too. But you can also copy the summary. You can copy the link, where I can share the link here and send the recording to your prospect. It shows everybody that attended the call. It shows that I was sharing my screen at certain parts, so I can go right into the note to the meeting that was recorded and go see what I was sharing. Here's the questions that I asked. I like the next steps, which is great, because this is the whole point of a meeting, especially a sales meeting, is at the end of that, what's the takeaways? What are we supposed to do at the end of all of this? And what's the next steps? So this has been fabulous. Now, I haven't even gotten to my other favorite sales tool, and that is ChatGPT. So what I did here, now, of course, we all know we're using ChatGPT for just about everything. But what I did, the prompt was, can you take this transcript? And I could have been even more specific. This is a sales transcript. Point out the challenges or pain points that I should focus on from a next sales conversation perspective, and or list out the questions I should have asked, but I did not. I'm trying to improve my sales ability. So I then just copy pasted the whole thing in there, and you can kind of see it's got the timestamps, who's speaking, the whole conversation. And so I just like dumped this in there. And this is the cool part, because if you've ever had a business coach or anybody that has been coaching you along in your sales journey, one of the things they'll always tell you is record your call and just rewatch it. Here's the problem with that. If you're not really proficient at sales, you're not really sure what you're looking for or what you're expecting. But when you ask it to evaluate the transcript of the call that you were just in, and then ask it to be pretty critical about, what could I have done better? What did I miss? This is what it did. Here's the challenges and pain points you should focus on for future sales conversations. So it focused on that whole conversation, what the pain point and challenge was. Then it gave a little description based on the prospect I was talking to and the way that she was describing her situations. And then the opportunity for me. Now, it knows the opportunity for me because I have an ongoing dialogue with ChatGPT about my offers, what my agency does, how I consult, the type of work I do. So I'm very specific with it understanding that. So if it's going to give me any opportunities, they're obviously relevant, these opportunities, to what I already do. So you can kind of see there's a lot of stuff here, and you could take a few of those or all of those and even make this for a presentation in a follow-up sales call. Here's important sales questions you should have asked but missed. So yes, definitely, this is like Sales 101. Who besides you needs to approve any new marketing investment? What's your target for lead volume or website-driven inquiries over the next 12 months? I did kind of ask other pointed questions strategically, but these aren't bad questions. And one of the other ones, this was about a website redesign, which that's not something I'm offering. So I didn't go into details about website vendor decision being finalized. That wasn't important. The point of this isn't to just take this and just like say, oh yeah, I should make sure I ask all these, but it's really good feedback in terms of what the conversation was and how to respond. And I like that it's like, here's your sales approach, some strengths, coming across extremely professional, experienced, and easy to talk to. That's always my main goal in any sales conversation. So I'm glad that it pointed that out and connected with her background and challenges naturally. So, and I was also very important, a clear description of my offer without being pushy. And then here's areas to improve. These are really good because they're very specific. Lean too heavily into presenting at the end. Could have paused after the pain points. Would you like me to show you what we do? That's also a very sales 101 kind of a thing, is getting the approval back from the prospect over the course of time. This is a regular practice that, as I said, these two tools, by going through this process, this should help me get a lot better at my sales game. And then the actionable follow-up recommendation. And then, of course, it's going to say, would you like me to create a follow-up email? And yeah, sure, let's do that. This is saving you so much mind time. Then obviously what I did was I tweaked some of this. So I didn't want it to be as long, but I tweaked a little bit of it. It had a really good, some bullet items to include in there to make sure that I talked about. But, just using those tools and really, really focusing on how you can get better at sales is just, that's the kind of thing that I think you can't ever um, get away from. You're always going to be improving or working on your sales, your ability to come across professionally, and the right timing, reading the room and understanding at what point do I need to just stop and say nothing, which generally is the case at the end of the conversation, especially if you're presenting a price. You should just say it and shut up and not say anything. But I've got some other points that I wanted to kind of share with you because I think it's really important. All right, now I'm going to go through some things. These are obvious. Stay away from these from a sales standpoint. So this is non-technical sales advice. I was actually on a call with someone who I met through a cold email. She was interested in learning about my specific consulting services. She was also looking for a website designer. She told me that she had a call with a guy that was eating lunch, chomping away while having this sales call with her. She told me, I immediately wrote him off. Gee, I wonder why. She was like, I couldn't believe he was just like chomping away, which is, again, pretty obvious. If you're going to be on a sales call, have your lunch after the call or before. But like, really, I'm not sure what the dude was thinking of, but yeah, you want to avoid that. But, it really got me to thinking about the times I've been on the other end, the prospect, when I was completely turned off by a salesperson. So I'm going to recount for you some times and some situations where you might want to think about things a little bit. If you really want to get better at sales, listening is far more important than talking. Talking more than 60% of the time, that's a lot. In fact, as I said, with Fathom, you can know this because in Fathom, it actually shows you your talk time. So just shut up after you ask a question, talk less, listen more. Talking more than 60% of the time, in fact, not a good thing. You can actually know this by going into Fathom and it'll show you what your talk time was. Okay, now that's that one. Next one. Bragging about all your client wins within the first 10 minutes, no go. You should be 100% focused on that prospect you're talking to. And at this earliest stage of the game, I could not care less who you got results for. You're talking to me. Now, I have absolutely no problem with if you're talking to, let's say, a pharmaceutical company, you can mention, hey, you know what? We worked with Merck, or you can name drop some other pharmaceutical company that you've done some work for and the type of work that you had done in a very brief kind of case study thing. That's fine. But going on about Charlie got this win and George got this win, and then I worked with Jill and she got that win. I don't want to hear about all these people and all their wins. So again, could be a personal thing, but I would venture to say nobody wants to hear that. Okay. This is the next one. Do not ask me, what would your life be like? Let's paint the picture of if you worked with me, what would it be like? Seriously? Now that I absolutely hate. I understand you're trying to get to the emotional aspects. And yes, people buy on emotion. I get that. But unless it's now again, what I'll say for this is for what I do for a living, I am talking about digital marketing consulting. Maybe I could probably tie it with if that business I'm working with, if they're literally having a nervous breakdown because they're taking on too much and they just need somebody to help. Okay, that's one thing. It's really not that life transforming. Now, if you're like a health camp or a life coach or, a mindset coach or something, maybe. But generally speaking, I don't, trying to put the connection of what your life is going to be like. Next one, do not cut off the person when they're speaking. Sometimes your prospect will go on and on and on. Now, this is if you're the salesperson and you also want to be conscientious of your time if you are the prospect, but there are prospects that will just keep going on and on and on. You do need to own that conversation as a salesperson. Now, you can't just speak over them. So what you've got to do, and it's challenging, find a natural lull in the conversation to get them back on track. What you want to do is start that call off with an agenda where this is how this call is going to go. I've got 30 minutes. Do we still have enough time for this call? Okay, because you want to confirm that they still have time to speak with you. So you want to make sure that's in place. Then you want to get to, okay, I'm going to ask you a series of questions because I really want to get at and understand what your current situation is like, something to that effect. And you really want to understand why they took the time to spend to set that meeting up with you. That should be one of your first questions. Now, when they go in and answer a question that has nothing at all to do with the question that you just asked them, you might want to try and subtly get them back on track because you need the answer to that question. Then you want to be conscientious of the time. Get it to wrap up by the end of that call so that you're not spending hours on a single sales call that may not go anywhere. So again, it takes a lot of practice, but it's definitely something that is going to need a bit of work. Now, this one may be controversial, but do not start the call off asking me, how's your day so far? It's really none of your business. Instead, you might feel like saying, small talk a little bit, maybe, especially if you don't really know them, but don't really say, hey, what plans do you have for this weekend? Because they may not really feel comfortable sharing that. And again, it's not your business to know what they're doing this weekend. So especially it's a first sales call. So it's kind of like a first date. You just need to jump right in. Hi, Kyle. Nice to meet you. Thank you for finding some time with me. That's it. Then you can kind of go into your launching your agenda setting. Here's how this call will go. And it's also good to let them know that you are always in charge of the meeting. It shows your ability to lead, and being a leader is important if you want somebody to work with you. The other thing you got to make sure is do make sure you get a second call booked before you leave that meeting. Once you've decided they would be a better fit, of course, obviously if they're not a good fit, you don't want to spend more time with this person. And as long as they agree, it would make sense to schedule a second call. So that I can't tell you how many times I've walked away saying, thank you so much for your time and nothing. It's definitely, you've got to get permission. Would it make sense for us to set up a second call together? Even if you have to write that down as a note to remember, you definitely need to do that. Make sure you review your notes. Ask ChatGPT how your call went. Share those notes with the prospect in a follow-up email within an hour after the call. Worst case, by the end of the day, ideally within an hour or so, but by the end of the day is good. And that's it. Sales is definitely not easy. It doesn't come easy to most people, but with the right tools I mentioned, along with some helpful advice, you can get so much better with your sales calls. Now, if you found this video helpful, please like it and share it with a friend. That's it. Thank you so much for watching.